Welcome back to the deep dive. You've handed us a stack of sources that, well, they read like a masterclass in psychological defense mechanisms.
Oh, absolutely. All masquerading as this really compelling character study.
Exactly. So
Okay.
today we are tearing into the intense professional and deeply personal lives of Boston firefighter Sean Devaney and the single mother who really just forces him to dismantle his entire life's architecture of self-protection, Deanna Blackwell.
That's perfectly put. Our mission today is to go, far beyond just the narrative. We aren't just summarizing plot points here.
No, this is a deep dive.
We're here to extract the key operational insights. This is fundamentally about how profound, deep-seated past trauma, and we're talking specifically about the experience of abandonment, how it doesn't just influence behavior.
It's more than that.
It constructs an entire lifestyle, a fortress of isolation. We need to analyze how two people, both experts in extreme self-reliance, how they managed to break down those defenses and move from this panicked independence to a permanent, stable connection.
And what's so fascinating to me is that the starting line for this entire journey is, well, it's literal destruction.
Right.
It doesn't begin with a meet-cute,
Right.
but in the smoldering aftermath of a catastrophic fire.
So we encounter Sean Devaney at what you could call a physical and emotional breaking point. He's a 10-year veteran of the Boston Fire Department, and the scene is, it's the still, smoldering, smoke-filled ruins of a large, old Victorian house.
One that had been chopped up into apartments.
Exactly. Low-rent apartments. His eyes are stinging, his gear is heavy, and he's operating purely on fumes.
And there's this brilliant distinction the sources draw between why he started and where he is now.
Yes.
We're told he joined the BFD as an idealist, seeking to be the hero, craving the thrill of high stakes, doing something that inherently mattered.
And that drive, that idealism, you have to think it was a subconscious attempt to compensate for feeling, insignificant or abandon himself.
For sure. But now, that thrill is completely gone. He's reduced to just craving sleep, focused on the tedious, exhausting work of dampening the final hot spots.
It's just the acrid smell of smoke and exhaustion that defines his professional life at this point.
Yeah. And even in that state, that exhaustion, his professional eye is still razor sharp. He's focusing on the systemic failure, not just the disaster itself.
Right. He's observing the structural evidence, he sees numerous code violations, and he concludes the blaze was almost certainly caused by an outdated, overloaded electrical system.
It grounds him, He's dealing with tangible risk, clear cause and effect.
And his one hope, which is a sort of grim professional consolation, is that the negligent landlord, Lawrence Wyatt, has a healthy insurance policy.
Because he knows the tenants, who are often poor and overlooked, are coming for compensation. And that focus on the overlooked tenants is the perfect thematic bridge to his own history.
It is, because the devastation he's seeing, this total arbitrary loss of a home, it instantly triggers his deepest, most defining internal conflict.
His own abandonment trauma.
And it's not a slow memory. It's a flash of physical panic. The source material details that even the thought of vulnerable children in that disaster zone, it instantly brings back the memory of being 6 years old, waiting outside school for his mother who had never come.
It's not just sadness. It's a visceral physiological response.
It really is. Let's break down the mechanics of that trauma because it's so essential to understanding his resistance to any kind of commitment.
Okay.
His parents disappeared from Boston, and Sean and his two older brothers, Ryan and the twin boys, Michael and Patrick, were just thrust into the foster care system.
And separated.
And eventually separated. And the twin boys, they were younger, probably too young for foster care to seem like a good option, which is why the sources suggest they might have been taken by the parents.
While Sean and Ryan were just left behind.
So the foundational fear he internalized from that is not just rejection, but self-blame.
That he wasn't worth staying for.
Exactly. And to manage that crushing belief, he built this extreme, sophisticated defense mechanism. Isolation designed to make him untouchable.
We see the details of this fortress, don't we? An unlisted phone number.
A complete avoidance of credit cards, a deliberately low profile.
I want to challenge that a little. Is the low profile purely defensive, or is it more of a control measure?
Ooh, interesting. Go on.
He told himself that no one had come looking for him because he was impossible to find. That gives him this illusion of control. He is the reason for the isolation, not their indifference.
That is a critical distinction. Yes, it is absolutely about control.
Because if he were easy to find and they still didn't call, The pain would be unbearable.
Exactly. If you choose isolation, you preempt abandonment. If you are impossible to find, you can tell yourself they just failed to locate you, rather than admitting they didn't care enough to try harder.
And this sophisticated avoidance mechanism is why his protective instincts, which are so extreme when lives are on the line, are just non-existent when it comes to his own emotional life.
He avoids attachment because attachment is vulnerability.
And then onto the spark that detonates this entire careful architecture. A determined, nearly 6-year-old boy named Kevin.
Kevin is just the embodiment of the vulnerability Sean is trying to protect himself from. We meet him scrambling inside the fire engine, trying to set off the siren.
And Sean stops him, and the boy. He cites wise parental advice
Right.
about strangers.
Yeah.
And refuses to give his name.
Which is priceless because it shows Kevin is already learning these survival techniques of self-preservation.
But he's also this charming manipulator. He settles on the alias Seth just to befriend the firefighter. He finds a loophole in his mother's rule.
Right. He's not giving his real name, so he's safe, but he still gets the connection he craves.
Yeah.
He's a pint-sized con artist, as Sean calls him.
And that's the exact moment when Sean's carefully maintained control just short circuits. When Kevin matter-of-factly points to the scorched Victorian and says, "That's where I live," Sean's blood ran cold. It's pure, immediate projection.
He doesn't think, oh, what a brave kid. He immediately thinks the mother was missed inside, this boy is abandoned. He is re-experiencing his own trauma through this child.
And his initial reaction is so judgmental, isn't it? It's rooted in his own bitterness. He expects Kevin's mother, Deanna Blackwell, to be irresponsible, a stay-out-all-night playgirl mom.
Which is just another defense mechanism. If she's irresponsible, his emotional intervention is justifiable. If he helps Kevin, he's finally fulfilling the role of the adult who wasn't there for his 6-year-old self.
But Deanna completely flips the script.
She really does. When he meets her, she looks like an angel with smudges of exhaustion under her eyes. She's visibly hit by the profound shock of losing everything.
She's not flighty at all. She's grounded by a very harsh reality. This immediately destabilizes Sean's judgment of her.
She's a responsible, exhausted survivor, not a neglectful runaway.
And the moment of breakthrough for him comes when Kevin confirms his real name, and he explains his clever use of the alias Seth.
Right. And this forces Sean to acknowledge that, okay, maybe Deanna is doing a far better job of raising her son than his initial snap assessment suggested. The judgmental filter starts to crack.
And then comes the financial reality of it all, which, it solidifies the first real foundation of their relationship.
Deanna admits she had no insurance on the contents of the building. She just couldn't afford it. And Sean, recognizing her desperate situation, a situation he knows intimately from his own childhood, he pulls out $100.
And the crucial line, it's a loan, not charity.
Yes. He immediately frames it as a transaction, trying to maintain distance, even though he mentally kisses the money goodbye. He doesn't want her to owe him emotionally, just financially.
But Diaz's response, that fierce promise, "I will pay you back," it immediately sets the stage for this conflict centered on control and pride.
For both of them. They both treat help as a form of humiliation.
Precisely. Their relationship starts with this urgent protective impulse from Sean, rooted in his history of hunger and loss, and it's met immediately by Deanna's fiercely defended self-reliance, which is rooted in her own history of betrayal.
It's a perfect psychological standoff.
So as we move into part 2, we see the psychological standoff really harden. These two are corely attracted to each other, but their defense mechanisms are immediately at war.
And the sources wisely introduce a parallel relationship that acts as a kind of funhouse mirror, reflecting Sean and Deanna's issues.
Hank and Ruby.
Hank and Ruby. And we need to acknowledge their function without getting too bogged down in their plot. Ruby, Deanna's friend, she's the flashy blonde, but she's fiercely loyal. And critically, she's an active matchmaker.
She immediately pegs Sean as daddy material and is actively trying to push them together.
She recognizes the stability he represents, despite all his emotional walls.
And then you have Hank DeMartelli, Sean's fire partner, who is his polar opposite. The notorious flirt, the risk-taker in romance.
Who instantly expresses interest in Ruby. Hank's already bragging about the station, betting on Sean's likelihood of seeing Deanna again.
Which is this classic male bonding ritual that Sean just hates because it reduces his emotional risk to, like, a monetary calculation.
Yeah, you can't stand it. And the sources define Hank and Ruby as a volatile pair, noting they are made for each other because of Hank's relentless flirting and Ruby's fickle nature with men.
And Sean, the emotional micromanager, immediately assesses the situation.
Oh, yeah. He intentionally throws Hank and Ruby together with Kevin just to engineer some alone time with Deanna.
But his protective instincts kick in immediately, even for Ruby, who isn't his priority. He warns Hank not to get out of line, worried that Ruby is more vulnerable than she lets on.
And that's such a tell. Sean is incapable of standing by and watching vulnerability be exploited, whether it's Kevin or Ruby or Deanna. He might run from commitment, but he rushes toward protection.
That is a crucial analytical point. His trauma manifests as this need to protect those who can't protect themselves.
Which is, in a way, how he protects his 6-year-old self.
Right. By focusing his protective energy outward onto Deanna and Kevin, he delays the necessary work of protecting his own heart, which would require him to commit.
And that need for control quickly, and I mean quickly, clashes with Deanna's own fiercely guarded pride. She is determined to climb out of this crisis entirely on her own terms.
Deanna is just exhausting herself to the point of collapse. She's working full-time as a receptionist at a small law firm for, what, minimal salary?
And she takes evening tips at Joey's Italian diner, where the owners, Joey and Pauline, are like her surrogate family. Her self-reliance is her armor against the humiliation she experienced in her past.
And the symbolic flashpoint for all of this is, of course, that $100 loan.
Of course.
Deanna is driven to repay it immediately, working extra shifts at Joey's, reaching the point where she is on the verge of collapse.
And Sean sees this frantic self-reliance as utterly destructive, so he steps in, not with kindness, but with judgment and anger.
Yeah, this is where we need to slow down and really analyze the mechanics of this conflict. Sean's interference, insisting she take the money back, arguing she's self-harming, it's another attempt at control.
He is trying to manage her environment, essentially substituting himself for the stable parent he never had.
But his argument is just brutal, because he hits her with the abandonment argument, linking her exhaustion directly to his deepest, rawest pain.
He tells her that working herself to exhaustion means Kevin hardly sees her, and that is the same thing as abandonment.
He weaponizes his own trauma.
He does. And he uses the stark reality of his childhood. I've gone without a mother. I would have gone hungry every night of my life if it had meant seeing my mother again. He speaks from this place of radical lack.
Comparing her self-imposed exhaustion to his involuntary abandonment, it's designed to shock her into compliance.
The silence that follows that must have been just agonizing.
Oh, for sure. But Deanna defends herself with equal ferocity, insisting she would never walk out on Kevin.
But she immediately synthesizes the truth of it. She correctly deduces that Sean's entire hyperprotective, judgmental stance comes from his own raw pain.
She sees his wound and she calls it out. And this is the first time anyone has penetrated his exterior to actually name the source of his behavior.
And that moment of extreme confrontational intimacy where they are emotionally naked and furious with each other is immediately and inevitably channeled into sexual tension.
Enter the ice cream cone moment.
A masterpiece of shifting power dynamics.
It really is. They're at an old-fashioned soda fountain. Sean, still annoyed by her stubborn pride, orders her a vanilla cone, which is this subtle taunt, right? Like he's treating her like a child who needs direction.
But Deanna refuses to be directed. She consciously takes control of the moment. She swivels her stool, directly faces him, and performs this deliberate, slow, eye contact, heavy lick of the cone.
It's an act of seductiveness that is so sleeting but so potent. She uses her sexuality to reclaim her agency in that moment.
And Sean is utterly rattled. He freezes, his gaze is locked on her, and he labels her a temptress.
Why do you think that is?
Because she managed to crack his composure using pure, unexpected physical chemistry. This woman, who he tried to categorize as a victim needing his control, is suddenly dangerous because she controls the attraction.
And the tension just becomes almost unbearable.
And that unbearable tension finds its inevitable outlet later at Joey's. Sean, who is still basically following her, still trying to boss her around, corners her in the kitchen.
They're arguing about her refusal to rest. The argument is just a proxy war for their feelings.
It is. And Sean cuts through all the anger with a pure, unplanned physical action. He claims her lips.
The sources describe the kiss as a loss of control for both of them, a heady combination of heat and urgency. It's desperate, not tender.
And Sean, the man defined by his need for emotional distance, immediately recoils. He views it as insanity, one of the 10 dumbest things he'd ever done.
His first reaction to intimacy is panic and immediate regret. He apologizes and physically retreats, which just confirms the power of his defense mechanism.
But for Deanna, that kiss is the turning point. She's left dazed, realizing she wants him to kiss her again, having unwittingly awakened a sleeping need. Her long-held defenses, built on intellectual humiliation, are no match for this raw elemental attraction.
And this lapse in control, it prompts a deeper vulnerability from her, which is the only way forward for them.
Deanna reveals the core of her profound distrust. Her ex-husband, Frankie Blackwell.
Right. Frankie walked out not because he found someone else, but because he realized he couldn't get his hands on Deanna's trust fund.
The betrayal was purely financial, which humiliated her by confirming that she was just a means to an end. This experience cemented her belief that self-reliance is the only way to avoid being used or discarded.
So what you have are two people with mirror image trauma.
Yes, Sean was abandoned because his parents valued something else more than their children. Deanna was betrayed because her husband valued something else more than her.
And both traumas lead to the same result, a radical commitment to independence and a profound fear of partnership.
The sexual chemistry is powerful, but it's the shared architecture of their trauma that makes them compatible. They recognize the scars in each other. So moving into part 3, we see how external crises, literal threats to safety and life, are required to dismantle the emotional walls these two have constructed.
They need the intensity of a crisis to force any kind of internal change.
Exactly. The first major external threat Deanna faces isn't physical, but professional. Her exhaustion, which is fueled by her desperate pride, leads to a critical error at work.
A major legal package is found on her boss's desk, Jordan Hodges. She expects immediate termination, which would just crater her ability to protect Kevin.
It's a high-stakes moment that really tests her belief that she has to handle everything alone. And Jordan Hodges, the supposed shark in court, he completely subverts that expectation.
Right. He sees her years of high performance, demands to know why she didn't disclose the fire, and reveals this compassionate, almost paternal side viewing his employees like family.
He essentially forces her to accept institutional help, which is crucial because it provides legitimate professional stability that Deanna can accept without feeling financially beholden to Sean.
Hodges goes after the negligent landlord, Lawrence Wyatt, and secures a $5,000 settlement for Deanna, refusing a fee.
And this influx of capital allows Deanna to move out of temporary housing and into her own place, even if it is, as the source says, disgustingly shabby.
The settlement removes that immediate, crushing financial pressure, which was the engine driving her overwork and the source of her biggest conflict with Sean.
With that external stress relieved, the emotional dynamics can finally shift.
And we should probably briefly mention the office politics detail here. Deanna realizing Charlotte Wilson let her take the blame.
Yes, not for the plot detail, but as an indicator of Deanna's growing strategic maturity. She doesn't explode, she quietly uses the knowledge for future leverage.
She's learning to use measured aggression, not just pure exhausting self-sacrifice.
That's the key. She's moving from reactive self-protection to strategic self-advocacy. She is learning how to accept support and how to navigate betrayal without letting it define her.
And the physical cost of her self-reliance is made brutally clear when she collapses. She faints from exhaustion while working at Joey's.
And Sean, who is clearly, let's be honest, he's stalking her, eating there almost nightly under the guise of casual interest. He hears the ambulance call on the dispatcher.
This is the second crucial moment of his uncontrolled protective action. He rushes to the scene, pushes his way into the ambulance, even though it's not his call.
His reaction is sheer, unadulterated panic. He's frantic, scooping up a sobbing Kevin and holding Deanna's hand, realizing his need to keep her safe is utterly obsessed.
This is his maladaptive protective mechanism fully engaged. He's not thinking rationally. He's reacting purely as the 6-year-old who watched his stable world evaporate.
He cannot allow this woman, who has come to represent stability and potential family, to slip away.
And Deanna's confirmation that his voice pulled me back to reality just underscores the depth of their connection. He's already her anchor, even if they haven't admitted their love yet.
And let's connect this obsession directly to his professional heroism. Shortly after this incident, Sean faces his own near-death experience in a serious structural fire.
Yes, exactly. He and Hank respond, and Sean defies 2 direct orders from Lieutenant Beatty.
First, to rescue a trapped, hard-of-hearing elderly man. And second, and far more recklessly, he goes back in, against explicit orders, to rescue Hank, who is injured by falling flaming beams.
This is such a perfect example of his commitment paradox. He can perform these acts of extreme, definitive loyalty and commitment when the danger is immediate, physical, and clearly defined.
Right. He rushes in, totally focused, oblivious to the heat, risking suspension, and ultimately earning a medal. He proves his worth by saving lives.
But he cannot apply that same loyalty to the slow, undefined emotional commitment of a relationship.
It's safer to risk his life for 5 minutes of heroism than to risk his heart for a lifetime of devotion. Lieutenant Beatty wisely recognizes this paradox.
He grants the medals, but cautions them heavily against future rogue decision-making, emphasizing the chain of command.
Which is essentially the chain of emotional responsibility Sean is ignoring in his personal life.
And both of them are forced to the hospital, Sean with minor burns, Hank with a broken ankle. The proximity to death and the defiance of authority for the sake of loyalty is the psychological precursor to him defying his own inner rules about commitment.
Which sets the stage for the final emotional confrontation. This happens during the week-long Cape Cod recuperation trip, which is ostensibly for Hank.
But this proximity forces Sean and Deanna to acknowledge the intense, constant tension, which the sources accurately call sexual emotional torture.
Sean is visibly struggling. He finally admits to Hank that he's getting there. He's falling for Deanna, and the fight against it is exhausting him, but he still can't take that final step.
So Deanna pushes him over the edge by calling out his hypocrisy.
Yes. Sean, operating from his default setting of fix the broken family, pushes Deanna to reconcile with her estranged parents, who disowned her over Frankie.
And Deanna, who is always sharp, delivers the final defining blow. She fires back, accusing him of a double standard. Why is he insisting she fight for a relationship he won't seek out himself? She forces him to look at his own fortress.
And he can no longer evade the question. The truth, which he has suppressed for decades, just spills out.
He reveals his deep-seated guilt surrounding the twins, Patrick and Daniel, and the upheaval their arrival caused. He internalized the idea that his childhood resentment or wish for them to go away was the reason his parents left.
This is the core trauma mechanism, the idea that he possessed bad genes or was somehow fundamentally flawed.
Leading him to believe that if he became a father, he would inevitably repeat the abandonment cycle.
He avoids fatherhood, not because he dislikes children, but because he fears his own catastrophic capacity for betrayal. It's a self-hatred rooted in a child's misunderstanding of adult complexity.
He took responsibility for an abandonment that was entirely beyond his control.
And this realization, forced out in the proximity of impending commitment, is the final barrier that has to fall.
So the emotional battlefield is now cleared, and the physical setting for the final breakthrough is fittingly domestic. Deanna's disgustingly shabby new apartment, which they're painting together.
Sean is still processing that trauma revelation and his near-death experience. Deanna confronts his silent brooding, asking, "Did I do something to upset you?"
And Sean, just emotionally saturated, bypasses all control and blurts out the truth he's been fighting for so long. "I'm in love with you."
It's the most vulnerable, uncontrolled statement he could possibly make, and Deanna matches his vulnerability with relief and certainty.
He launches herself into his arms, confessing, "I love you, Sean Devaney. I never thought I would say that to another person, but it's true."
They've both crossed the point of no return.
Which leads to their first night together. And the physical intimacy is described as a desperate, elemental need, the release of months of warring tension and suppressed longing.
It's a connection forged in conflict, seeking desperate confirmation.
But the true analytical breakthrough, for me, happens the morning after. Sean wakes up, and instead of the expected panic, the fight-or-flight instinct that dictates a trauma survivor's reaction to intimacy.
He feels an unbelievable sense of inner peace.
Exactly. He realizes he wants this. He wants to wake up next to her for the rest of his life. The physical act of commitment, surprisingly, neutralized his fear.
And this newfound peace enables the core healing conversation. Sean confides his shame about resenting the twins and his belief that he caused the family to collapse.
And Deanna, now secure in their love, acts as his rational anchor. She reminds him that he was just a scared 6-year-old not responsible for adult choices.
She reframes his trauma, shifting the blame from his bad genes to the adults who failed him.
The power of that moment, you just can't overstate it. By accepting compassion, Sean finally lets go of decades of guilt. He is no longer defined by what happened to him as a child. He is defined by the man he chooses to be now.
And with that internal guilt removed, the external commitment becomes not a risk, but a necessity. He proposes immediately, right there in the apartment.
And he uses the protective logic he finally understands. They owe it to Kevin to make this relationship permanent. He is building a family that he can ensure can't be broken.
Deanna, already on board, tentatively suggests next October.
But Sean lets it slip that Hank is running a bet at the fire station, hoping they'll marry by fall so he can win hundreds of dollars.
And Deanna's response is marvelous. It's this blend of commitment and playful revenge. She immediately shifts the date to New Year's Eve, ensuring Hank loses his bet while still committing to a short engagement.
It shows their partnership is built on shared values and mutual amusement, not just intensity.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the theme of healing the fractured past continues with Sean's older brother Ryan and his wife Maggie.
Maggie announces she's pregnant, prompting Ryan to confess he's terrified.
And Sean, now healed, is able to offer reassurance. He argues that because they both experienced abandonment, they will try all the harder to be good present fathers.
Which just confirms that Sean has successfully reframed his trauma into a motivator for stable commitment.
And then Sean performs the ultimate act of relational stability for Deanna. He secretly reaches out to her estranged father, giving him a chance to make things right.
And the father shows up and walks Deanna down the aisle. This gesture healing Deanna's family wound is Sean's perfect wedding gift. It shows he understands the depth of her shame and the value of reconciliation.
So the resolution is swiftly formalized. Sean adopts Kevin, making their new family unit ironclad.
And the parallel relationship is resolved. Hank, inspired by Sean's unexpected stability, finally proposes to Ruby, the ring burning a hole in his pocket.
But the narrative doesn't allow for a perfectly neat, contained ending, does it? The trauma of the past is vast, and the final piece of news reminds us of the complexity of family loss.
Right. Ryan reveals that their relentless search for the missing twin, Michael, has paid off.
Michael, who was last seen at age 4, has been located in a hospital in San Diego. He was injured in the line of duty with the Navy and is currently unconscious.
And Deanna immediately urges Ryan to go to him. This pushes Ryan, and by extension Sean, to continue the active pursuit of their birth family, even as Sean has built his perfect future.
The initial wound, though patched for Sean, still ripples outward, demanding resolution. It's the perfect ending for an analysis of trauma. You can build a magnificent future, but the ghosts of the past still require acknowledgement and healing, especially for those who are left behind. #outrap.
So what we've really distilled from this deep dive is a powerful mechanism of change. Sean Devaney spent his entire adult life building walls based on self-blame and the fear of repeating abandonment. But his trauma mechanism, that uncontrolled need to protect the vulnerable, was cleverly subverted by the author to force him into a permanent, loving commitment.
The fires, the fainting, the near-death experiences, these external crises acted as necessary mirrors, forcing him to apply his radical loyalty to the only people who truly needed it: Deanna and Kevin.
The core analytical takeaway for you, the learner, is the transformation of defense mechanisms into engines of commitment. Sean's isolation tactic was destroyed by Deanna's equal opposite self-reliance.
When they clashed, they realized they could only survive by merging their strength. His history of abandonment was the exact reason he would dedicate himself to ensuring Kevin would never feel that way.
He used his deepest pain as the foundation for his greatest strength.
And it also offers a profound insight into the complexity of trauma resolution. The discovery of Michael, injured and unconscious across the country, leaves the original Devaney family unit incomplete, even as Sean finds stability and peace in his new life.
The narrative suggests a continuous obligation to the past, even when the present is perfect.
Which raises our final provocative question for you, the listener. Sean found emotional resolution by creating a new, stable family unit and rationalizing his childhood guilt. But does finding true, holistic peace for past family trauma require active search and reconciliation with the history you left behind, like Michael's situation demands of Ryan?
Or is the creation of a healthy, stable future, as Sean has done, sufficient to truly heal the scars of the past? Can you ever be fully whole if there are parts of your original identity still missing and hurting?
Something to ponder as you navigate your own complex commitments.
We'll see you for the next deep dive.